This slider animation will definitely make your client's website stand out. It's actually easier than you think using React and Frame Emotion. So let's get right into it. Here we are in the IDE making this comparison slider. This one's going to be a bit of a challenge for me. We'll see how I go. A few differences in this one. I'm going to use Tailwind CSS this time to give it a go and get better at it. The best way to learn how to code is to just code, and that's what I'm doing. You may see things I do weird, just point them out in the comments, and I would love to learn from you guys. Pretty much all I did was just make a full screen div, which is where the component will go. The next thing I'll do is create the div which will actually be the component. And inside this will be two more divs, which will be the two images, the before image and the after image. Mentioning that, I should import those so that I can use them. So now I've got my images imported, ready to go. We will have a div for before with the image, Next.js image, which needs a source, which will be before, and alt, which I'll put as before. There's our before image. We can copy this and do the same for after. And now we've got both before and after doors. The next thing we'll do is overlay them so that when we can slide, we can see one or the other. This div here will need to be relative. Each of these will be absolute. Oh, so they're not showing because we need to set a height on this relative div. We want it to be the height of the images. I'm going to set it as a style, height, before.height, and width of before.width. And now we have them on top of each other. And you'll be able to see this if I put the opacity of this to like 30, they'll be over the top of one another. So when we slide, we'll be able to reveal the one underneath. Now, I think the next thing will be to add the actual slider that we will grab and slide across. This will be outside of this. And again, it'll be absolute over the top. I'm going to make this a div with a class name, which will be absolute with a height of full, the background black, and the width too. So we get that. Okay, I'm going to put this inside. So we've got this on the side. We want this to be starting in the middle. I'm going to add a class name here of left calc 50% minus 4 pixels. Now, why is it 4 pixels? Because it is half of the width. This width too is 8 pixels. To use RAM, we could use 0.25 RAM, but I'm just going to use pixels. And that'll place it in the middle. That's probably enough setup. Now we can start trying to animate the drag. This here will be a motion div. So we will import motion from Frame Emotion. Convert this to a motion div. And then we can add drag, and I only want it in the X direction. It's an attribute, which is drag equals X. So now we can grab this and drag it left and right, but I don't want it to go past here. So I have to add a constraint. The constraint will be this container. So we will create a ref, drag constraint ref equals use ref from React, and we will set it to null. Because I'm using TypeScript, I need to set the HTML div element because that's what it is. And then we set the ref on this. Drag constraint ref. Now that won't do anything yet because we need to set the constraint on the drag object too. On here, we will do drag constraints equals drag constraint ref. Now it shouldn't go past. Yeah, it doesn't. There's a bit of elasticity and I don't want that. So I'm going to disable that too. And there's also momentum, which I don't want. We're going to go drag momentum false. Now it won't let continue. I want it to just be linear. So that's looking pretty good, but how are we going to unveil the one underneath? This is where it gets difficult. We'll see how we go. So I'm thinking I'll have a state for the width of the left side and the width of the right side. So I'll go const left width, set left width 0, import from React, and then right width right width and set right width. It's actually going to start as half of the image. So we could go, we can set it initially using the image from Next.js. On the class, we will add a style of width, left width, and then also put this here with right width. Now they're on opposite sides, so with the absolute, we need to do right 0, and on this one, we need to do left 0. So that they're like that. It's not filling up the space. I need to do something about that. So I'm going to actually add the style to this div. Let's set these back to 0 because this is the initial state. We can set this to width half. Same with this one. Get rid of this. Get rid of those. Oh, we need a height full maybe. And then on here, class name object.cover. Okay, that worked. What we needed was a height full on the container and a height full on the image. Possibly a fill would have worked. Yeah, okay, a fill works too. So I think I'm gonna go with the fill. We've got like our starting state, but it's kind of weird because they're both centered. To fix this on here, I'll have object right. On this one, I'll have object left. And now they overlap to look like half of the door is new and half is old. And that's what we want. And now if we were to drag this, you know, it'll have to change. So now we'll have to handle the changing width with the drag. So this drag component will have an on drag, which we can link to a function, handle drag, which hasn't been created yet, but we will create it. So let's make a const handle drag equals, and for now we can just console log dragging or something. If I were to inspect this, can you see? We're dragging, so it's picking it up. Now we can do more with this because the handle drag will take in an event. Mouse event, or touch event, or pointer event. And it also takes info, which is pan info. From here, if we were to log the info dot point, as we move this, I'll clear this, we're getting the position of the mouse. And this will be handy because we can use that to determine the width of each of the images. Const position in bounds. I am actually going to need the position of this to work it out. So I'll have the info.offset point.x, have the x position of the mouse minus this edge position, because then we get rid of this space. So it'll be like minus container x position. So I'm going to create a state for that too, which will be container x position and set container x position. Now, how do we get that position? What I'm going to do is use this ref in a use layout effect, which will, if drag constraint ref.current, then set container x position to drag constraint ref.current.offset left. Using that, we can set the left width position to the position in bounds, because that will be the leftover space between here and here. And we can set the right width to the image minus the position in bounds. I haven't set the width. I need to do it here. Style width, left width, and then here, right width, which is 0. Oh, because of the initial state is 0. So let's set this to before.width and this one to before.width also. Okay, it's somewhat working, but what was with that initial state? So there's initial state like that. Oh, divide by 2. It's only half. So there we go. That's our initial state. Then as we drag this, we unveil, ignore that. So we switch between the two. It's kind of working. But yeah, as you saw, there's a few little bugs, which I'm going to solve now. As we hit the edge, it keeps following. And we don't want that. We want it to stop once the bounds are hit. So to do that, there'll be some conditionals in here, the drag event. So the first thing we'll check is drag position over left bound const. And so that will be info.point.x is less than the container x position if the x point is less than the edge position. So if is drag position over left bounds, and then we'll add else. Oh, silly me. So if it's over, it's going to be set left width will be 0 and set right width will be full before dot width. There we go. But now we've got the other side. So what about this side? It'll be very similar to this. Over right bounds. Is drag position over right bounds. So again, we'll be checking this, but with a little bit of a difference. If info.point is actually greater than container x position, which is here, plus the width, plus before dot width. And then we'll need an else if. Is drag position over right bounds. In here, we will go set right width to 0 and set left width to before dot width. Ignore this. Oh no, don't ignore that. Okay, so I'm sorry, that was my mess up. My images had a little bit of white on the side. I thought it was a bug, but it wasn't. So if you have your assets correctly, you won't run into trouble like me. But so now we've got this slider, which will show you the before and after. Would be a great addition to like a trade website or a beauty website or like even a gym results, you know, having the customers be able to like slide across. You could style this up a lot better than I have, but it was more just about getting it to work for me. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned something. I learned a lot creating it. So I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.